Maya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshavanulitan Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So we are beginning the new year with our first Bhagavad Gita meeting of the year. And we are, I think it's our 5th class of this second cycle that we're beginning. And let me start our screen share. Welcome everyone, so happy to be here with all of you, sharing this divine substance. So, let me see, which is that the right screen? I think that's the right screen. Happen here. So we finished. I think that we chanted up to verse 20 of chapter 2, but we didn't go through all of the verses. But in any case, because it has been a couple weeks, as I mentioned, we missed last week because of the festival for Guru Day. So let's just listen to these first, and we just kind of, for a refresher, we can at least listen. We can hear Srila Govinda Maharaj chanting these verses, and we can just kind of scroll through and refresh ourselves with these verses, and then we'll pick up with discussion of the verses 11 to 20. I think we'll need to review again. Okay, so I'm going to play from the beginning of chapter 2.
Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Sri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srimad Bhagavad Gita Dvitiyodhyaya Sankha Yoga Sanjaya Uvacha Tang tatha kripaya vistamashruporna kulekshyanam Visidhantamidang vakkam uvacha madhusudana Sri Bhagavan uvacha Kutastha kasmalamidam visame samupasthitam Anarja justamasargam akriti karamarjuna Klaipangamasamagama partha Naitattadjupajujyate Hudrang hridayadorvalyam Taktutishta parantapaha Arjunuvacha Kathang bhishma Ahang sankhe dronancha Madhusudana Isubhi pratijotsami pujarha varisudana Guru nahatvahi mahanubhavan Seyo bhaktung bhaikkamapi haloke Hattartha kamangstu guru niyahaiva Bhunjiya bhogani rudhira pradigdhan Na chaitadi vidma kataranno gariyo Yadva jayema Yadiva no jayeyu Yane bahattano jijivishama Teva sthita pramukhe dhata rashtra Katpanna doshopahata svabhava Prichhami tang dharma sangmudha cheta Jat shreya shannischitang bruhitan me Shishyastehang sadhi mangtang prapannam Nahi prapasyami mamanupadyad Jatchokamutchoshanamindriyanam Avappa bhumava sapatinamriddham Rajjang suranam api chadhipatyam Sanjaya uvacha Eva mukta hrisikesang gurakesa parantapa Najatsya iti govinda muktva tushning babhuvaha Tamuvacha hrisikesa Prasanniva bharata Senayorubhayor madhe visidanta midangavacha Sri Bhagavan uvacha Asachannanna sochattang Praggavadangscha bhasase Gatashunascha Nanu sochanti pandita नत्तेवाहं जातु नाशं नत्तं नेमे जनाधिपाः न चैवं न भविष्यामः सर्वे वयमतः परम् देहिनोऽस्मिन् यथा देहे कौमारजौवनं जरा तथा देहान्तरप्राप्तेर्धीरस्तत्र न मुच्यते मात्रा स्पर्शास्तु कौन्तेय शीतोष्णसुखदुःखदा आगमापायिनो नित्यास्तां तितिक्षस्व भारत जंहि न बथयन्ते ते पुरुषं पुरुषर्षभ सम दुःख सुखं धीरं सोऽमृतत्वाय कल्पते नासतो विद्यते भावो नाभावो विद्यते सतः उभयोरपि दृष्टान्तस्तनयोस्तत्त्वदर्शिभिः अविनाशि तु तद्विद्धि येन सर्वमिदं ततं विनाशमव्ययस्य न कश्चित् कर्तुमर्हति अन्तवन्त इमे देहा नित्यशोक्ताः शरीरिणः अनासीनो प्रमेयस्य तस्माद्युद्धस्य भारत जयेनं वेत्ति हन्तारं यश्चैनं मन्यते हतम् उभौ तौ न विजानीतो नायं हन्ति न हन्यते न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचित् नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अयो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणो न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे.
Okay, so I think we chanted through these verses in our last meeting, but I don't think we exactly went through them. So maybe we can just quickly review. I remember we discussed is it verse 11? So we
talked about 2:11 because that's my favorite, and that was the one you had me read.
Okay, that sounds good.
Got that far.
It sounds good. I remember we discussed verse 7 quite extensively. This is, as we mentioned, this is like the real starting point of Bhagavad Gita, the moment of surrender, where Arjuna surrenders to Krishna despite the bewilderment and the doubts that he's feeling. He defers to Krishna's higher vision. Let's see. Right, and then we have here verse 11, which we use mentioning. I think we did discuss this a little bit, just making this point that, Krishna is saying, you're sounding like very intelligent, you're speaking all these wise words. However, the whole foundation of your argument is weak. Why? Because the soul is immortal. There's no question of destroying the soul. There's no question of harming others, actually. It's not possible for us to harm anyone in a substantial sense. Right? We are eternal spiritual beings. Was there some particular point you wanted to bring up with that verse?
No, I just like the validation in it.
Mm-hmm.
That he doesn't go straight to you're completely off base. He's like, what you're saying makes a lot of sense, and also there's this part you're not thinking about.
Right. It's a good point. Now this verse 12, this is quite an often quoted verse, and it's very nice. There's this kind of inclusive mood here, right? There's this feeling of togetherness in this verse, right? And this description, right, of an eternal existence, past, present, future. We have existed, do exist, will exist, and we're all in this together. There's a sense of that. Never was there a time when you, I, all these things didn't exist. Just as we exist in the present, so we exist in the past, so continue to exist in the future. Now, this is a really wonderful analogy, and this is a verse which is perhaps out of all these verses on the eternality of the soul quoted the most. You'll see quoted by our gurus more than any other. It's very helpful, or perhaps one of two. Well, no, actually, all these verses are pretty key. This next one's also pretty key and often quoted. But very nice. As the living being passes through the bodily changes of childhood, youth, and old age, it similarly attains another body of death. And this is something we can all relate to. It just makes so much sense, doesn't it? As as the years pass, we're all experiencing the changes of our body. We're looking in the mirror, but we feel ourselves to be the same person within, like the same conscious being is within. But externally, we see the change. So we can understand. Similarly, we just pick up another body. When we drop this one, we pick up another one. This is very helpful verse speaking about, being detached from the duality of this plane. Right? Tolerate. Why should we waste our energy, our valuable time and energy, by engaging with the superficial plane of duality, right? Things are always moving in cycles: hot, cold, pleasure, pain, rich, poor, friends, enemies, right? All these things, they come and go, right? So why by the movement of time, by the movement of karma, all these things are naturally cycling. So why do we need to become engaged with them? We can remain aloof, try to connect with a deeper plane. Let's see. I don't remember if we actually read these translations. Did we read, was that you, Marie? You read through these translations? I can't actually remember.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, we did. I think I remember you reading. Okay, now this verse, this is another I think we read them, we just didn't discuss all of them.
Right.
This is another very key one. Najayate mriyate vaparacham. This is very helpful. This is a verse that I'll use a lot, and like if I'm speaking to a new audience. It's a very, very, very it conveys the eternality of the soul in a very clear way. The soul is neither born nor dies, has neither been nor will it be created. It is unborn and eternal. It is ever youthful, yet ancient at the same time. It is not destroyed when the body is destroyed. So Arjuna is saying here, come to understand the dignity of your own soul. Try to understand the glory of your own self, the wonder of your own self. Don't limit yourself. Don't tie yourself down to a limited conception of who you are and who all these other beings are. How noble, how dignified you are in your soul self, your soul being. Let us connect with that. Okay, well then I think we can continue. Does anyone want to bring up any comments or questions, or should we go on to the next 10 verses that we looked at today? Okay, then I'm going to go on.
Veda vinashinang nityang jayena majavadvayam katang sa purusha partha kanghatayati hantikam vasang sijiranani jatha vihaya navani grinahati naruparani tatha sarirani vihaya jiranannanyani sangjati navani dehi Nainang chindanti shastrani, nainang dahati pavaka, na chainang kledayantapu, na shusayati marutaha, asidduya madachuyam, akliddu shasyaevacha, nittah sarvagataha sthanu rachaluyang sanatana. अव्यक्तोऽयमचिन्तोऽयम् अविकार्योऽयमुच्यते तस्मादेवं विदित्वैनं नानुशोचितुमर्हसि अथ चैनं नित्यजातं नित्यं वा मन्यसे मृतं तथापि तं महाबाहो नैनं शोचतिमर्हसि यातस्य ध्रुवो मृत्युर्ध्रुवं जन्म मृतस्य च तस्मादपरिहार्यादे न तं शोचितुमर्हसि अव्यक्तादीनि भूतानि व्यक्तमध्यानि भारत अव्यक्तनिधनान्येव तत्र का परिदेवना आश्चर्यवत् पश्यति कश्चिदेनम् आश्चर्यवद् वदति तथैव चन्न आश्चर्यवत् चन्नमन्न शृणोति श्रुत्तापेनं वेद न चैव कश्चित् देहि नित्यमबुद्धूयं देहि सर्वस्य भारत तस्मात् सर्वाणि भूतानि न तं शोचितुमर्हसि.
All right. Well, we have our special guest here today, Sivasana Didi. So Didi, maybe you can kindly lead us in the Sanskrit. Maybe we can follow you as we also vibrate these divine words. Okay, so we're picking up from
Reading
21.
together.
Yeah, well, we can all read together, but you can lead us.
वेदा विनाशिनं नित्यं ये येनं अजम् अव्ययं कथं स पुरुषा पार्थकं घातयतु हन्तिकम् वासांसि जीर्णानि यथा विहाय नवानि गृह्णाति नरोपराणि तथा शरीराणि विहाय जीर्णानि अन्यानि संयाति नवानि देहि नैनं छिन्दन्ति शस्त्राणि नैनं दहति पावकः न चैनं खेदयन्त्यापो न शोचयति मारुता अच्छेद्योऽयम् अधाह्योऽयम् अक्लेद्यो शोष्य एव च नित्यसर्वगता स्थानो अचलोऽयं सनातनः अव्यक्तोऽयम् अचिन्त्योऽयम् अविकार्योऽयम् उच्यते तस्मादेवं विदित्वैनं नानुशोचितुम् अर्हसि अथ चैनं नित्यजातं नित्यं वा मन्यसे मृतं तथापि त्वं महाबाहो नैनं शोचितुम् अर्हसि जातस्य हि ध्रुवो मृत्यु ध्रुवं जन्म मृतस्य च तस्मात् अपरिहार्येत न त्वं शोचितुम् अर्हसि अव्यक्तादीनि भूतानि व्यक्तमध्यानि भारत अव्यक्तानुदनान्येव तत्र का परिदेवना आश्चर्यवत् पश्यति कश्चिदेनम् आश्चर्यवत् वदति तथैव चान्यः आश्चर्यवच्चैनं मन्यः शृणोति श्रुत्वाप्येनं वेद न चैव कश्चित् देहि नित्यम् अभद्योऽयं देहे सर्वस्य भारत तस्मात् सर्वाणि भूतानि न त्वं शोचितुम् अर्हसि.
Right. Maybe I'll just go through and read those translations. O Partha, knowing the soul to be indestructible, eternal, birthless, and immutable, how can a person kill or cause anyone to be killed? As a person adopts new garments, discarding those that are old and worn, similarly, the soul continues to adopt new bodies, leaving those that are old and useless. This is another very helpful analogy given in Bhagavad Gita. And this is one of the verses that is quoted often by our gurus. So this is very helpful foundational advice, right? As we mentioned in one of our recent meetings, this whole thing that we're doing, this culture of Krishna consciousness, spiritual consciousness, it only becomes relevant when we understand the eternality of the self, right? And all of this means something. Right? So this is very important. It's like the ABCs, I call it the ABCs. Yeah, this is the foundation. And Krishna is establishing this right at the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. And then we can build upon that foundation. Weapons cannot pierce the soul, and fire cannot burn it. Water cannot wet it, and air cannot dry it. It is said that the soul is indivisible and cannot be burned, moistened, or dried. It is eternal, it reaches all planes, yet remains still, immovable, and ever present. It is imperceptible, inconceivable, and untransformable by the sixfold transformations of birth, existence, growth, maturity, diminution, and destruction. Therefore, knowing the nature of the soul as such, there is no reason to lament for it. And, O best of warriors, even if you think that the soul is perpetually subject to birth and death, you still have no reason to lament. For one who is born, death is certain. And for one who dies, he must be reborn to undergo the reactions of his past actions. Therefore, you should not lament over the inevitable. O Bharat, when all living beings are unmanifest before birth, manifest between birth and death, and again unmanifest at death, why lament for them? Now, this is a very wonderful verse. We hear Srila Sridhar Maharaj spoke of this. Ascharya, saying the Bengali style. Ascharya means like wonderful, astonishing. Some see the soul as astonishing, some describe it as astonishing, some hear of it as astonishing, while others, though hearing about it, know nothing of it. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he discusses this verse, and I think it's subjective evolution. And he's saying, like at every step, one will feel wonder, right? At any point, having any connection with that soul plane, one will be astonished. It will be filled with wonder. O Bharat, the soul dwelling within the bodies of all living beings is eternal and cannot be slain. Therefore, you need lament for no one. So there's no question of someone harming another person. Okay. What's that?
May I ask something, Vishaka Didi?
Sure, Prabhu.
Yeah. So like you were just mentioning that we cannot harm anybody. So what about the offenses? I was listening actually Gurudev lecture. He said we are not getting because of offenses. So we have to avoid offenses. So if we cannot harm anybody, so how we can really commit offense?
Through offenses, we're just harming ourselves.
Uh-huh.
We're not harming anyone else. We're only harming ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it is true that
Gurudev was, telling you. Yeah.
It is true that Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he makes an interesting point in this regard, that if we are offensive towards, let's say he says like some middle-class Vaishnava, they still have some anarthas, they still have some bad qualities, some faults they're struggling with, then their ego may be ruffled, right? If we offend someone like that, they may become angry, but that is because of their own anartha, right? That is because of their own weakness that they become angry. And that doesn't necessarily represent whether we made an offense or not. And the pure Vaishnava, if we offend them, they won't be disturbed actually, because they don't have any care for themselves. They will be upset if we offend other Vaishnavas, we offend their guru, or we offend the Lord. But the pure Vaishnavas, they will never be offended on their own account. So really, the only person we're harming through offenses is ourselves. We are not harming others. Really, it's really a very interesting point. Like the whole conception of humiliation, of feeling humiliation, that's all the result of false ego. The feeling harmed, feeling that we've been done wrong, That's due to misconception and identification with the body, mind, and ego. If we are free from that false identification, we will not feel we've been harmed by anyone. If we are maintaining integrity within our own self as Atma, as soul, we won't feel harmed by anyone. We will see clearly that everything's moving according to cause and effect, right? In this reactionary plane, things are moving according to cause and effect in this reactionary plane. And all these ripples are carrying out, right? And one will not be disturbed by that. One will just observe this whole thing playing out. So
just one more thing. I was actually talking to some devotee. He was telling me it's all Leela. He is just, I don't know, foolishly was saying. Then I said something happened, then he whines. He said, Gurudev said also, realization is necessary. Realization, without realization, it's all just story. Thank you. You make good point. Yeah.
I mean,
in
some cases, the things may be Leela. In our own case, we won't think like that. It is true sometimes if we see quarrels amongst the pure Vaishnavas, or we see quarrels with the Lord and his associates, then that may be Leela. Krishna sometimes has a quarrel with Balaram, right? That is part of the divine play. And so that may also happen amongst the elevated Vaishnavas. But we will be careful to think that, and we will not apply that thinking to ourselves. That word Leela, I hear sometimes devotees using that word a little loosely. Oh, this is our Leela, right? Actually, that is not appropriate. This word Leela we like to reserve for higher devotees and the Lord and his associates. Kirtida, yes, you have your hand raised.
Yes, may I ask a question? I don't know
please.
if it's relevant, but I am thinking about the functional self and the fundamental self.
You're
And
thinking about what? Sorry, what did you say?
The functional self.
Functional, did you say?
Yes, and fundamental. And I am stuck in the functional self. I know about the fundamental, but I don't feel it. I know about the self, fundamental, but I'm stuck in the functional self. The functional self is that the ego, false ego.
I understand. The functional self, you mean like the self that's active right now?
Yes, yes.
Current identity, right.
Yes, and the fundamental self, I know about it, but I can't feel it. Yes, so I'm stuck in the functional. Yes, so I don't know how to work it out.
Right. Well, I mean, that's okay, actually.
Okay.
Okay. You know, I mean, this is the whole problem, right? And this is what Bhagavad Gita is addressing. This is what yoga is, right? Yoga is based on this problem that we know we know that we are Atma. We know theoretically that we are Atma, and it makes sense logically. And we may know persons who are we may know persons who are identifying and living in the plane of Atma, but we ourselves are not experiencing that, right? So this is the whole problem. This is the whole premise. And this is yoga is the answer to that. How to make that link. How to enter that higher consciousness while we're living in this lower plane and identifying with this lower plane, right? So then there are two ways of going about that. One is the conventional yoga practices, right? Austerity, meditation, and all of that. That, you know, and the Vedas, they give these two terms right? Aroha panta and avaroha panta, the ascending method and the descending method. So Bhagavad Gita is also describing these two lines of progress: self-ascension versus descending grace, climbing up versus being pulled up. These are the two options. This is the map. This is the roadmap that's being laid out to us. You can choose. You're at a crossroad. You can choose which way you want to go. But here's the thing. If you take the path of self-ascension, you're going to hit a dead end at a certain point. You may pass by some pretty scenery along the way. There may be some nice picnic spots along the way. But eventually you're going to hit a dead end. There's only so far you can go on that path. And eventually you're going to have to come back also to where you started. So this is why the bhaktas, they choose the path of avaroha panta, the descending line of grace, right? And so what is that based on? The principle of sharanagati, the principle of surrender. So because through the other paths, we can get some temporary, repression of our mundane nature. And we can have some experience of the Atma, the soul. But if we haven't made connection with the Supreme Soul, if we haven't entered into the cultivation of devotion, which represents our intrinsic nature, then it's not a permanent position. So we are ultimately depending on grace, and really the devotees, they're actually not so interested in whether they can feel the soul or not. That is a very high level, of course. They don't, the highest devotees, they don't care if they're liberated or not. They don't care if they can feel the soul or not. They just want to be able to remember Krishna. That's all. And one day they may reach liberation and they'll just keep going and they'll hardly even notice. And they'll just go on with their Shravan, Kirtan, Sadhu Sangha, Vaishnava Seva, right? This is what's very interesting, right? That our gurus point out sometimes, that ultimately the sadhana and the sadhya, they will merge into one at the highest stage. The practice and the goal, they will merge, right? Ultimately. In the beginning, then we'll make these distinctions, right? Some bandha abhideya prayojan. There's some bandha understanding what is what, who is who, what's our true nature, the spiritual ABCs and all that. What's Maya, illusion, etc., etc. There's abhideya. What is the way? What is the practice? Right? That's bhakti. And then what is the prayojan, the goal? Divine love, prema. Right? And the idea is that through practices of devotion, we will awaken prema, divine love. But in the highest state, those souls, their sadhana and their sadhya have merged into one. They're doing all the devotional practices, but not just as a practice, but as expressions of divine love. So they're also chanting the holy names. They're also serving Guru and Vaishnava. They're also taking prasad. They're also worshiping the deity. But instead of it being like an arduous practice, that's something that we have to do, and let me set my alarm clock and, gotta go do that now. It's going to be, oh, wow, this is so joyful. How wonderful, right? They're all expressions of love, right? So that's the thing, right? The devotees, they're not so interested actually in whether they realize themselves as soul or not. They just want to remember Krishna. And they want association with the Vaishnavas. That's all. And Bhakti Vinod Thakur, this is what's so beautiful, simple, and sweet about Vaishnavism. So sincere, so pure. Bhakti Vinod Thakur is praying, let me take birth as a worm. Let me take birth as an insect. I don't mind, but just let me have the association of your devotees. Lord Brahma is praying like that. You know, I don't want to be born as Lord Brahma if I don't have the association of your devotees, Lord. But I would rather be an insect in the home of a devotee and hear your glories day by day. Even Nanda Maharaj, right? He's in his prayers, in some of his prayers, he's expressing this, like this. We were reading this not too long ago. Karma bir brahmyamananam. You know, according to my karma, according to the will of providence, so many things may go on. Let that all go on as it is supposed to. But all my only prayer is that we will always remember Krishna, we will always glorify Krishna, we will always love Krishna. Whether I'm in the state of bondage or I'm not in the state of bondage, whether I'm liberated or not liberated, I just want to remember Krishna, that's all. So Vaishnavism actually simplifies things. And although we may not feel these things in our heart right now, we appreciate that ideal, right? And we are cultivating our appreciation for the ideal. That in and of itself is very powerful. So if someone asks me, how are you? I'll say, I'm hopeful. What are you doing? I'm cultivating my appreciation for the ideal.
Yes, beautiful.
I may not have appreciation for it right now, but I'm cultivating that appreciation. Thank you for the wonderful question. Yeah. It's a very...
Thank you, Vishakadasi. Thank you for listening.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Thank you for answering.
Any other thoughts, Subhasan? Do you have anything you want to add?
No, that's beautiful. The questions are beautiful, answers are wonderful. It's nice. Yeah. I was actually, when you go through in that verses, how many times Krishna said, na sochitum marhasi, that at least like 5 times in that, 5 or 4 times in that 10 verses we read.
Huh.
Yeah. It ends with na sochitum, don't lament.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah. It's at least 5 times, or 4. Definitely 4, maybe 5. Yeah. So, how first, because Arjuna was like lamenting, right, initially. And then Krishna explains all that, and then don't lament, it's just such a, like, so personally, he's like giving that, so that was really nice.
That's beautiful. I'm just looking here. Can you show me what?
It is from which one?
Oh, in the 10 ones we just read. I was looking earlier.
30 from, is that? No,
we read 21 to 30, yeah.
Okay, yeah, 21 to 30.
Natvam shochitam arhasi. Oh, yeah. I never noticed that before. Wow, I never noticed that before. I'm going to do another screen share.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to do a screen share. I see Marie has raised her hand. I just want to look at this quickly, then we'll come back. This is very beautiful. I never noticed this before. See, this is why we have to hear in the association of the Vaishnavas.
4 times.
From 25.
25.
Right. Nanu shochitam are. So shochitam, the shocha is referring to lamentation.
Yeah.
So don't lament. He's saying. And then here again, nainam shochitam arhasi, 26. Then 27, natvam shochitam arhasi. Wow, I never noticed that. That's so beautiful. It's like he's this kind of gets lost in the translation. Well, or maybe I just wasn't paying attention. 9, wow, that's so, it's like so beautiful. It's like he's reassuring him. You like feel the affection there.
30 also.
And also 30. Natam Shoti. My God, Sivasini. Amazing. I
Krishna is
never
so,
noticed that.
yeah, I like, don't, Krishna is, such a, it's so personal, he's addressing, he's Arjuna's friend, it's like that. Such a wonderful feeling.
That's wonderful. It's just, yeah, you feel that he's affectionately reassuring his dear friend. Wow. Wow. What a revelation, man. What is that? So beautiful. And this is quite a profound point, actually, because this whole lament, and you see this in different places, this concept is mentioned throughout Gita. You see it also in some of the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, because the whole experience of lamentation is based on one thing, more the identification with mortality, that death, and I'm going to die, right? That things are temporary. Lamentation is based on that. But once we get over that, once we understand our nature as eternal beings, then there's no need to lament, right? And this word Shudra is what the lowest class of persons is referred to in the Vedic social classification. That word Shudra, it's coming from this word, lamentation. So what is the nature of a lower class person? They're identifying with the body in the temporary plane. Necessarily, they're going to be in a state of lamentation. Right? And then in that, what's that, 18, what is it? That famous verse, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Na Shochati Na Pamchati, this famous verse, 18th chapter. The enlightened soul, they never lament, Na Shochati. They never lament about anything, because they're feeling the eternality of this plane of spirit, of Atma. So wow, thank you so much, Vas. I'm going to meditate on that. It's a wonderful point. It just, you see, this is why we read again and again. Like, everything's revealed in layers. Like, how many times have we read Bhagavad Gita? Like, I never noticed that. And it's like I'm feeling palpably Krishna's affection coming out of the pages, for Arjuna and for all of us. Right? How affectionately he's reassuring his beloved friend. Beautiful.
I have one more thing to add.
Yes,
If
Kangalila.
that's okay. Well, the whole lamenting, my native language is German, so it means like beschweren, which means something like make yourself heavy. Like you make yourself so heavy when you're doing that. When you're lamenting is actually lamenting is almost translated as make yourself heavy.
Wow, very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. You're tying yourself down with limited.
Yeah.
protection.
Yeah. You get
Beautiful.
heavy.
Beautiful.
And I guess with that heavy, we become more material also, when you're heavy and down to earth and earthy, then it's kind of pulling away from the transcendental idea, like an anchor.
Thank you for sharing that, Benjamin. Wonderful. Marie, please, you wanted to bring something up.
Well, I was going to say that it's kind of important to recognize exactly what's meant by lamenting, because, like I come from a tradition that understands there's a time and place for holding space for grief. That sometimes in order to get a moment of that more enlightened vision, you have to first sit in the mud of where you are. And I think it's important to note that Krishna is doing all of this repeating of, you don't need to lament, you don't need to lament about this, you don't need to lament about this. And in doing that is actually doing that work of holding space. He's recognizing Arjuna's grief. He's saying, yes, this is difficult. This is difficult. This is messy. This doesn't immediately make sense on the face of it with the logic that your brain can currently handle. And I'm here with you in this mess, telling you it's gonna be okay.
That's beautiful, Marie. That's beautiful.
And he only does that because Arjuna gets to the point where his rumination on it is paralyzing him.
It's almost like you envision Krishna like patting him on the shoulder, telling him, do not lament, do not lament. I feel you, but you don't have to lament. It's going to be okay, like you said. I love that. It's beautiful insight, Marie. Because it's right. Like he's giving that advice, but the fact that he's repeating it so much, it's showing that he's validating that feeling at the same time, right? Acknowledging it, honoring it. Beautiful. I see Scarlett has her hand raised.
Yes, Hare Krishna, and thank you very much for today. You mentioned Bhakti Vinoda Thakur and about Anartha, and I remember some times ago I heard that he has wrote a book about the demon and what it represents in us, in our behavior, Anartha, and so on and so on. May I ask what is the name of that book, if you know about it?
Is it Tattva Vivek? Do you know, Didi? Yes, there is a book where Bhakti Thakur does it. I think I've heard I think it might be Tattva Vivek. I can do a quick Google search. Ask Mr. Google. Tattva Vivek. Demons. Yeah, I think it's Tattva Vivek.
Thank you.
Yeah, Tattva Vivek. So.
And I have a question here also. I can understand the way that Lord Krishna telling Arjuna, you don't need to be worried, you don't need to lament, you don't need to lament, and so on. How can I work on not feeling anything? For instance, my pain, not to feel my pain, not to let my pain stop me and make me to be forced to sit, because it does so much pain that I can't stand. I have to sit. So how is there any way that I can control it so that I can still do what I need to do without letting the pain, how to say, to stop me? Because the pain, even though I can't say there is no pain, it's impossible. I can't say I don't have pain. I have pain. It does pain. So how to say, don't worry about that. It's not real. Can I work on it to do it as it's not real?
Well, I mean, the thing is, we do have to honor and Marie was bringing up this point, right? We do have to honor the fact that we have to accept the fact that we are human, right? And there's the human level and there's the divine level, right? And we're in the process of culturing faith and that higher plane of divinity. But at the present moment, we still identify with our human nature and we cannot immediately jump. So, we may have to deal with our humanness, right? And that may mean something like therapy, we may need to, it's like if we have a bodily illness, we may need to go see a doctor. It is true in principle that by our devotion, everything else can be solved. That is a principle. But do we have that level of faith? If we're not living on that level of faith, we can't pretend that we are and expect to solve everything like that. So it may be that we need to take care of it by some human means, through some type of therapy which helps address that pain, right? But it is a very individual matter, right? And everyone will have to assess for themselves. It really depends on the specifics of what's being dealt with. I mean, if one wants to go the spiritual route purely, if that is something feasible, then they can pray. I mean, I can recommend that. I would say my general advice would be that you do something within the human plane to address what you're going through with that pain, to address that pain. But you also approach the Lord and pray for shelter. Pray to the Lord, pray to the saints. Please guide me, please help me. And we also sometimes just have to tolerate, right? What is that expression? The dark night of the soul, right? We a lot of the time we just have to tolerate and go on day by day. Right? And we are hopeful. We're always, as Kanakalata was saying, we live in hope, right? And we can remember the example of the chatak bird. It's always very expectant, waiting for those drops of nectar to come from above. So we can have some honest awareness of what is our condition, and we may have to do something on the human level to address that. But at the same time, we are earnestly hoping for a higher way of being, for a higher revelation. Right? We are hoping to identify more and more with our relationship with the Lord and the Vaishnavas, to that may be our center. And all the pain that we've experienced as a result of our entanglement in this worldly plane, that will become very remote to us, right? But yes, perseverance, toleration, just going on day by day, that's a lot of what we're doing, right? Patience is very helpful. Rupa Goswami mentions that as one of the 6 favorable qualities for devotion, patience. It's a long road, and we'll have to tolerate many things within ourselves, from the environment. So, but yes, I mean, in brief, I can say, it's okay to acknowledge our pain. And it's okay to, we can read what's in Bhagavad Gita, but we can also acknowledge I'm not there yet. As I said, what are we doing? We're cultivating our appreciation for the ideal. We may not be able to immediately apply and practice everything, but at least we're embracing it as truth, right? I have full faith. Everything in Bhagavad Gita is 200% true. But am I really applying that in my daily life in every instant? No, my faith is not that developed, right? I have full faith that everything that my guru and the scripture is saying is true. But I'm not always able to live up to that, right? And I'm also accepting that, right? And I also have hope that I'll get there one day, right? And I don't want to imitate. I don't want to pretend I have a higher standard of faith than I do, right? So I'm recognizing my limitations, and I'm going on day by day. And I live in hope that I'll get there one day, right? But just the fact that we're able to appreciate how wonderful this is, that's a big deal. Like, let's give ourselves some, pat on the back, right? That's already huge. Even if we're not able to apply and practice everything, just the fact that we are embracing this as truth, that's huge. That's wonderful. That we're praying for Krishna's mercy in our lives. We're praying for the mercy of the Vaishnavas. That's a huge thing. We've left a space for Krishna to enter our lives. Right? We don't need to try and fix everything ourselves. Like, okay, I know I'm a mess, but I'm depending on Krishna to fix it. I'm his property. I'm my guru's property. It's up to him to fix it. I can't fix it on myself. It's not my responsibility. He has to do that. So it's okay that we don't live up to the ideal, but we hold that in our hearts, right? And we do what we need to do to go on. We may have to, we may have to do some therapy, take some pills, or watch some Netflix, or whatever it is, right? To go on day by day, like that's okay, right?
Fortunately, I don't have Netflix, so I don't have such. I have not seen films very, very long time, so I don't have any Netflix. But I read a.
Well, that's wonderful. Or have some ice cream or whatever. Have a pizza party. No, we have to acknowledge our human condition. We can't immediately jump from here to there, right? But we are embracing that as the ideal. So, or do your crystal therapy or whatever it is. Whatever it is that helps, right? But if someone can become free, only through their faith, that is a wonderful thing. It is a very high plane, very high plane. But really, like, just having clarity is so helpful. Like, just understanding, like let me give you an example. When I was in America a few months ago, someone paid for me to see a kinesiologist, and they do this like muscle testing to try and get to the root cause of an illness, right? And ended up turning into a whole therapy session. And we're going back to things that happened when I'm 11 years old, and this and that. And it actually helped me. It helped my physical body, but when I came out, I also felt a little dirty. I felt like I just like dug into all the gunk of my human psyche, and then I thought to myself, it's just like going to the bathroom. I was thinking like going through therapy is just like going to the bathroom, and sometimes you have to go to the bathroom, right? You need to go to the bathroom. I'm not going to go and like glorified into this whole spiritual thing and getting in touch with my divine feminine and reawakening my womb experience, reliving my womb experience and all. I'm not going to go start a whole movement about going through therapy, right? I'm not going to glorify that as some, the height of my human achievements, right? It's just like going to the bathroom. You got to go to the bathroom. So, we just do what we have to do, to go on. So we're keeping the perspective. This is the point. We're keeping perspective. We're not making some wonky, mismatched conception. I'm not going to change. And I like so much something Shuddha Shava used to say, that we will not pollute the ideal. I may not be able to follow the ideal, but I'm not going to pollute the ideal. So I'm not going to go out and tell everyone, oh, you know what? Actually, it's so important. I'm going to talk about this in all my classes. Everyone needs to do therapy to help awaken the inner divine goddess. This should be a part of our daily sadhana. And it's actually so important. I'm not going to go make that a preaching point, right? It's just like, yeah, thank you, Ganglila, taking care of our SHIT. That's exactly, just take care of it. Don't need to go and make a whole hoo-ha around it and make that the goal, right? Just do what we need to do. We do our yoga, to stay fit and healthy. We do, go see the doctor, go see the therapist, do it, just it's like oiling the machine. It's just oiling the machine so the machine can keep running. Oiling the car, doing your tune-up of the car. But what's important is the person inside of the car. Let's not lose that perspective, right? So a lot of things we'll have to do, we recognize, oh, this is a mental issue, right? This is a body issue, this is a mental issue. So I deal with that. But what's really important is the soul self within. So these mental issues, these body issues, it's like dealing with the car. But remember what's within, right? And then this is what we're holding up, right? This is what we're holding up. So, it's fine to do all these things, but we're keeping perspective. We're keeping perspective. That's what's important. That's what counts. So, well, I think maybe we'll end for today. We've had some really great topics brought up today. Thanks for bringing that up, Scarlett. Like, honestly, just being comfortable with who and what we are, that really is helpful. We can just take a deep breath and accept ourselves and keep reading Bhagavad Gita. It's been a beautiful meeting with all of you. Thank you so much. Thank you to our special guest, Suvasini Didi. Jai Shri Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Rakshak Shri Hardev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai, Shri A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada ki Jai, all the assembled devotees, sincere seekers ki Jai, Suvasini Jai, Shri Hari Ram Singh ki Jai, Itai Gaur Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Vishaka Devi Dasi ki joy.
Jai.
Joy.
See you all